Waft, 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 waft. Waft, waft. I like wafting along. Today I've got my hands on a 2021 Audi e-tron. This one is in the optional metallic black. It's called Mythos Black, and very nice it is. This is the Prestige model, which means top of the range, and it's also got the black optic option on it, which means all the trim is blacked out. Plus, you have these wheels which aren't black. So I'm going to take it out for a quick drive today. Big thanks to my friend Mike, who has literally just bought this car and trusted me with it. When you look at it, it's a very normal looking car, which I like. I think cars should look like cars. It's not trying to be something it isn't. The styling of this car is very conservative when you compare it with its two main rivals, which are probably the Model X, Model Y, and the I-Pace. I mean, they all looking a little bit futuristic and trying to be different and trying to be electric. This car looks very much like the other Audi SUVs, the Q cars. It's a little bit longer than the Q5. It's a lot heavier. It's 5,700 pounds, which is a lot by anybody's standards. And I think that extra weight hurts in terms of its range, which is fairly low, 222 miles as quoted by the EPA. This car is a quattro. In electric speak, that just means it's got motors at both ends, and it is marketed as having 402 horsepower and 490 torques. That power is only available in boost mode, and when I drive it, I'll show you what that means. Day to day, its rating really is 355 horsepower and 415 torques, which is more than enough. These horsepower wars have just got out of hand, completely unnecessary to have more power than that. For this one, it actually has a towing package on it, which enables it to tow up to 4,000 pounds. I'm not in the business of towing things around other than very light race cars, so I don't know if you need more, but probably if you needed to tow a big boat, you'd need more than 4,000 pounds. This is nicely styled. It's not exactly obvious that there's a charge port here, but how do you get into it? It doesn't work. There's nothing on the inside. You actually see there's a little button here. You press that, and down it pops. So here you've got your regular home charger plus your DC fast charger. You press that to close it up. And on the Prestige model, there is a similar thing on the other side. This is a thing that the Taycan has. You've got charge ports on both sides. This one's just for home charging. So, you know, if your charger is on one side of the garage and it's more convenient to charge it on this side, well, you've got that option, which is a very good idea. However, I think that door is just something to go wrong. This again is the Prestige. They've got this active matrix LED display, which is kind of cool. Rather large Audi grille. I don't like large grilles. Now, if we get inside this car, and as I open the door, it says "Welcome, Mike." Somebody's got to tell this car that I'm not Mike. This looks like a normal door handle. It's not. I mean, it looks just like any other Audi with the lock and unlock buttons. It's actually a switch. It's not a pull. So you pull that and the door pops open. Unfortunately, that's another thing to go wrong. And nice soft close on the doors. Let's sit in the back. I haven't actually thought about sitting in the back. It's very comfortable. You've got a decent amount of room. This seat's actually quite a long way back at the moment. This is a touch screen for the ventilation in the back. The car isn't switched on at the moment, but there are controls in the back with a touch screen, which is kind of nice. These are heated seats, not ventilated in the back. Plenty of headroom, and you got that big moonroof up top, which, given that it's zillion degrees today, I did not have that open. There's a button to open up the trunk in the back, which of course I can't find. Just lift, power tailgate as normal, and you've got a ton of room there. Seat release on the back, it's not electric, the seat will pop down. Now, this I would expect to get on a car of this level. I'd expect to get this privacy screen included in the price. It wasn't. That was an optional extra. To my mind, that is not an option at all. If we just unhook this net real quick, we can look at the trunk. Good under trunk space there, so plenty of room to store stuff. And there's actually a small frunk in the front, which is just enough to store the cables for charging. Plenty of room. Like many of today's SUVs, it's got a sporty backline. There's actually a sportier version of this. So you do lose a little bit of storage space at the back. But all in all, a very nice piece of kit. I approve. Well, let's have a quick look at some of the interior features of this car. First of all, starting with this wonderful gauge cluster in the middle. One of the nicest that's available on the market, I think. You can choose what you want to have in the middle. So for example, here I've got the navigation, and you can extend it to the whole screen at the press of a button. And you have the necessary information. You've got your speed on the left, and your drive setting, which is currently in park, but it's ready to go in dynamic, and your power usage, and you've actually got your altitude showing here, and my address. Look at that. Isn't that wonderful? And then you can go back to the bigger dial, so that's kind of neat. And here it shows you when you're in boost mode, which is releasing the beast with all the extra power. This car has two central screens. The bottom one deals mainly with the air conditioning, and a couple of interesting features here. One is this one. You see this little aerosol button? You press that and it sends smelly out to you. At the moment it's smelling like summer. I'm not entirely sure what that smells like, but that's part of the Prestige package. You can change the temperature degree by degree. Quite why it shows up here as well as down here, I don't know. So in addition to being able to change the temperature 1 degree at a time, if you swipe across here, you can just swipe up or down and set it to whichever temperature you want, which is kind of neat. And if I press this, then a menu pops up here, and it will start to massage me. Massaging seats. Now there is the height of luxury. So as far as the AC controls, at the moment it's on auto. If I press here, I can direct where I want the air going. So if I just want it kind of in the middle vents, you press there. You can change the intensity of the fan, or if you want, you can just swipe there and you can just swipe up and down real quick. So it's actually a very nicely laid out screen. And at the moment you can see that the right hand side is on auto, the left hand side isn't. If I press that, they both go on auto. If I press those again, they both come back to the individual settings. Very nicely done. And then normal heat, seat heating. Look, I've got heating and cooling at the same time. How do I manage that? So the bottom screen is purely for heating and ventilation. Also, you can set the garage door opener here. So that's Mike and Rebecca. That's the heads-up display. And then we can look at on this upper screen quite why it switches from screen to screen. And see, it makes you dizzy when you switch from screen to screen, but you can say what's in it. If we look at the top screen, this is where all the information is, and you can see, look at the fingerprints that you can see on that. It's, as I said, it's a very sunny day today, but they definitely show up. There were a couple of things that I wanted to show you. Like if we have charging and efficiency, if you go into efficiency assist, this is where you can set either automatic or manual recuperation. So there was some control over the settings there. Audi Drive Select is, you know, kind of how you want it to behave. There's also a button down here. So again, in so many cases that we're seeing these days, there are all these redundant controls. I don't know why you need to do it in several places. And here we can raise or lower the air suspension. That's pretty neat. And if we go into air conditioning, this is what I wanted to show you. See here, you've got your smelly. So you can have the smelly and it says smelly's coming out of these vents up here. Or we can have the ionizer, so it's, you can see the ions coming out, and that's coming out up here. I can't tell the difference, tell you the truth. Now, one really cool thing with the navigation, this is worth looking at. If I press search, you see you get a touch screen down here. So if I now type Troon, which is where I live,
Troon,
and it'll come up with a bunch of Troon places. So let's try restaurant.
Restaurant.
So it's found a bunch of restaurants. What's interesting is the very first one is Greasewood Flat, which closed down 2 years ago. But that's not the system's fault. It's very nice. And what is interesting here is this drive select. So instead of a gear knob, it's got this kind of button. And if you want to go somewhere, so that's in reverse now, and I can hear the car humming. And if I want to put it into drive, I just click back. If I want to go into neutral, I just do a half a click and it puts me in neutral. If I want to go into sport, that is now in sport. I have to look up to here and it tells me I'm in sport. Electric handbrake, which I hate on cars. And if you want to go into park, there's a button that you press on the side here. So very different, but I think you'd get used to this very, very quickly. But it's kind of strange that you have, you know, they could have just done this with buttons here, and you'd have a button for each one of the things. You don't need to have this fancy doodad. Other things worth looking at in here, you've got your ubiquitous cup holders down there, which Mike, the owner, said he doesn't like because they're too small. You can only get a can in there. Obviously designed for Europe rather than North America. Now here, that's to put your phone in, and that's a wireless charging pad, which is included on the Prestige model. That's right. Now see, we've got this camera view here. I wanted to, presumably that's because I went into reverse. This camera view has come up, so you've got the normal, this is actually looking forwards in front of us because that's my house there. You've got the overhead view here, and this has a 3D setting, and you can actually look all around the car and if you reverse, let's do this. If I put this into reverse, go into 3D, and if I back up ever so slowly, you can actually see your car backing up. So I can see what's going on behind me. Isn't that cool? I think we'll stop that before I hit something. That is really neat. And so you've got this, even it's accurately showing the shading on the road. It's telling me to check my surroundings. So there's my house, there's my neighbor's house, and I'm assuming if I drive forward slowly, it'll, there we go. You can do a video of yourself driving forwards, and see I've turned the wheels, and you can see the front wheels turning on the graphic, and it even shows when the brake lights are coming on. Isn't that cool? That is a really, really neat function. Not sure you'd ever use it other than doing a YouTube video, but really kind of neat. This interior is superb, as you would expect with any Audi, and it certainly doesn't disappoint. This is the, I have to remember this correctly, this is the Prestige model, because base isn't base anymore. Base is premium, and then you've got Premium Plus and then Prestige. So this one tops out at around $85,000. That is before the $7,500 federal credit. I must admit, sitting in this, I feel like I'm sitting really low. I can probably bring the seat up somewhat, but you actually feel like you're sitting quite low in it, which surprised me. Now, one of the things I really like about doing videos in electric cars is there's no need for the external mic. I mean, this thing is as quiet as you can imagine. It's great. Now, being the Prestige model, it does have double-paned acoustic glass, which cuts out all noise from the outside. You are completely isolated from the outside in this car. So you waft along, nothing like a good waft. Much like the Porsche Taycan, this doesn't have true one-pedal driving, so it behaves like a normal car. Now, I would imagine there are a couple of settings, like to have some regeneration. It says I'm in dynamic mode at the moment, and if I click this little starter back once, I'm in sport, and you can see that there's a power gauge that it has, and it goes from 0 to 100% and then boost. So if I plant, ooh, holy cow, if I plant my foot down, this thing takes off. It really does. And it's not the most powerful electric car in the market, but that is quite good. More than sufficient. Now, there are buttons here on the lower touch screen that take us through Drive Select. Let's put it in efficiency and see how dreadful efficiency is. We're coming up to a junction here. I'll leave it in efficiency and we'll see how it is for pulling away, because I have heard that it's a little bit lethargic and can actually make merging into traffic a little bit problematic, if not dangerous. Okay, we're pulling away. Yeah, not a lot happens when you're in efficiency, but it's kind of smooth takeaway like you'd expect. Dynamic is what we want, and we're in sport as well. There we go. That's probably the most fun one, and the one that probably has the least amount of range. This car is very well insulated, both in terms of sound and in terms of feeling the road, which is probably what you want in this kind of car. You don't want to have kind of the feeling, every bump feeling that you get in a sports car, for example. This is not a sports car. Realistically, at the moment, with the price that electric cars are, they're not for everybody. Most people who have an electric car will have another car. So if you need to do a road trip or go a long distance, you'll use the other car. It's as simple as that. And the electric car is for the bulk of the driving, which is short trips around town. And this is a perfect car for that. The range is lower than most of the other rivals, like the I-Pace and the Model Y, which I would guess are probably the two closest rivals to this car. But once you own an electric car, you realize it's not all about the range. The MPGe, which is kind of the miles per gallon equivalent for an electric car, is 78 for this car, which is pretty low. There may be one or two other cars in the market that are in that kind of range. For comparison, our Hyundai Kona, it has an efficiency of 120 mpge, and the Model Y and Model 3 are actually above that. So it's not as efficient as many other electric cars, but that really doesn't matter. To give you an example, here in Arizona, for our Kona that we've been using for a year, we've done 12,000 miles. Our total electricity cost, I estimate to be around $140. I mean, that's a couple of fill-ups in a large SUV. So the fact that you have to charge this one a little more frequently, probably not a big deal. Oh, that little bit of boost that I did used up 18 miles of range. Yikes. Admittedly, we are in sport dynamic, but it is very responsive to the accelerator pedal. So you put your foot down as you would expect in any electric car, and that power, and more importantly torque, is immediately available. And because of the prodigious torque, that would be a phrase my father would use, because of the prodigious torque, you really do need four-wheel drive. On our Kona, which is a lot lighter as well, and it's got crappy tires, it's only front-wheel drive, and if you have it in sport and you put your foot down, it just loses traction. Let's see what this car is like. So we're going down here at an obscenely quick pace because it accelerated very quickly. A long sweeping bend, and you can feel it you can feel the weight of the car, but it handles it really well. This has got an air ride suspension, which absorbs the bumps. It's a really nice dip there. Absorbs the bumps very well. The brakes are really, really good on this car. And you can't tell whether it's a mechanical brake or if it's a regen brake. And that's a nice law enforcement car. Good job I didn't go whacking through there at 80 miles an hour. And this part of the road is very, very bumpy, and it just absorbs the bumps. There's no fuss whatsoever. So yeah, this car is very well planted. I wouldn't want to go too fast in it though on winding roads, because it does feel a little disconnected. But that's what you get with a 5,700 pound SUV, which isn't really designed for spirited driving, and that's not what anybody who buys this car is going to be doing with it. No, it's for comfortable cruising, and this car cruises very comfortably. It stays relatively level through the turns, absorbs bumps very, very well, and doesn't protest when going hard through a corner. Now we've got a corner here, approaching it way too fast, and it did very well through the corner. Here's another one, and you can accelerate out of these corners really well. This car handles really well. It does not handle like a sports car, but it acquits itself very well in long sweeping bends. Mind you, it hasn't done the range a lot of good. This one on a DC fast charger, because it's got 150 kilowatt charging capability on board, will charge from 0 to 80% in around 30 minutes, which is pretty nippy. This car, being the Prestige model, has a very nice heads-up display, which I presume is configurable. At the moment it's telling me I'm exceeding the speed limit. That is going to be a problem in this car. I think people are going to exceed the speed limit because you just don't get a sense of how quickly you're driving. But coming back to the heads-up display, it's not one of these pop-up things. It projects to the windscreen, which I really like. Now it does have a futuristic name, the e-tron. That does sound futuristic. Unfortunately, in France, e-tron, it's not good. It means poop. So perhaps Audi were really trying to say this car goes like sh. Everything in this car is very normal. It's not trying to be different. It's trying to be a car, and it's trying to be a very good car, and I think it's succeeding at being a good car. Everything is where you'd expect it. The indicator stalks, they're not falling into the Tesla trap of trying to control everything with the center screen. There are well laid out buttons on the steering wheel, there are stalks. Everything is what you'd expect in an Audi. There is so much technology in this car, and this isn't just in this car, it's in all of these electric cars coming out. There's so much going on and so much you can do with the car that I can't possibly show you everything. I have literally picked this car up half an hour ago and is trying to figure it out as I go along. But there are a lot of menus and options and things that you can do. Now normally I'm not a fan of cars which control everything by touchscreens, and here there's a volume knob and there's a bunch of buttons on the steering wheel and some stalks. But as I'm driving along, I've been trying to select things on the main screen. There's actually two screens, and it's actually not too bad. Maybe I'm just getting used to this. Maybe it's because the ride is so serene in this car that your finger isn't getting joggled around. But it's actually pretty easy to use these screens, and they're very visible. It's a bright sunny day and I'm not having any problem seeing them at all. I'm also not having any problem seeing the fingerprints on them. That would bug me. Well, I enjoyed taking out the 2021 Audi e-tron today. I hope you enjoyed the ride with me. If you did, don't forget to give me the thumbs up. Take the time to subscribe and leave any comments below. And until the next time, which hopefully won't be too long this time, cheers.